Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. This is Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. Our topic today is how people may unknowingly judge us when we face adversity. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and the star of our show, Mr. Doug Lawrence, is here. Welcome, Doug.
Hello, everybody, and hello to our listening and viewing audience all over the world. Thank you for being a part of our show this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are. And we hope that you'll be able to take something away from this conversation that we're about to have.
Absolutely, Doug. I always feel like I'm at a workshop at a retreat, or I'm somewhere with you. We're sharing all these ideas. And I know for me, it's very helpful. So thank you. I hope you feel the same, and so does our audience.
I do. And you're the sort of person that you make it so easy to have a conversation. And in some cases, the conversations like the one we had on the last show was very, very, very deep. So thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Being here behind the green screen by myself, it's nice to be able to have a conversation, even if it is live and we are across the screen. It's really beneficial. So one thing I want to bring to light before we really dive into this topic is how we, me included, unknowingly, sometimes knowingly, we have expectations of people. We never had a conversation. We never made a verbal agreement, but yet we expect someone to do something just because. Have you ever had that experience?
I think that we probably go through that. Human instinct being what it is that we typically judge people no matter what the situation is. And I think, to specifically answer your question, yes, I've gone through that particular situation where I've passed judgment, for, I guess is the best way to describe it, but I've passed judgment when I wasn't fully aware of the circumstances that the individual was dealing with. And as a result of that, I have to, to be honest and say that I was unfairly judging somebody based on what I was seeing at the time, but not taking into account any other circumstances that may have been part of why this was going in the direction that it was.
Thank you, Doug. I'd like to just share with our audience, if they're not able to read the banner, that Doug has quite a lot of experience. He is an international certified mentor. He's also an international best-selling author, and he's working with people all over the world every day. So please put your listening ears on and watch this at a further time to take notes. But for now, just zone in on what he's saying, because there's some real gems that you're going to take away from here today. Doug, in addition to that example that you just gave about not knowing the situation, the scenario, sometimes we do know the situation because we know the pattern of behavior that we are in with this person. You always do this. He always says that. And then the person changes it and doesn't do what they've been doing. But our expectation was they were going to continue doing what they always do. And so now we're judging. Who do you think you are to change? You didn't tell me you're going to change. How many times do we hear this kind of interaction because we had an expectation that was not in alignment. And now we are judging and we're causing space, a rift between ourselves and the other person.
Well, in actual fact, what we've probably done is we've entered into a conversation with a level of bias. So we're assuming because this individual behaved in a certain way the last time that we had a conversation, we're assuming that they're going to act in much the same fashion as what they did the last time, simply because we're sort of saying to ourselves, well, that's how they did it last time, so they're probably going to do it again. So I need to be prepared for how they're going to respond based on my bias that I have already formulated.
Absolutely. And if we take a step back and we look at the bigger picture, I think as a society, there have been phrases thrown around for so long. For example, I'm using air quotes. Most Americans are overweight and sloppy. New Yorkers tend to be this. Liberals are the cause of that. Republic, blah, 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 blah. And we've put people into groups where we're judging them as though they're no longer at the basic core a human being. They're now in this bucket, in this category. Is there any explanation as to how we got to where we are in that regard?
Well, I think a large part of it is that when you think about it, we've got, we have a society today that in a lot of cases we set unrealistic and unjustified expectations of people around us. The most simplest approach, the easiest way to deal with a lot of this, the judging of people, is to look at things from the aspect of learning opportunities. So everything that happens today is, we can take away from that some learning of some sort. And instead of focusing on dealing with, passing judgment and all that sort of stuff, what would happen if we were to all start to sort of ask the question, what did I learn? And I'll use my reflection is, what went well, what didn't go well, and what am I going to do differently next time? And if I use that approach, I'm going to mitigate the amount of passing judgment that's taking place, because I'm putting myself in a position of managing a situation versus it managing me. And so being able to reflect back on previous situations and then formulating a learned strategy to go forward, I think is the path to take, rather than passing judgment on people without all the information.
Absolutely. And I want to expand upon what it means to pass judgment. And our topic today is how people may unknowingly judge us when we face adversity. So, a health example. Someone finds out, unfortunately, they need to have a kidney transplant. And someone else says to them, you know what the good news is? You still have one working kidney. Person's like, what are you talking about? So it's these kinds of things. Even, I'm just giving health because that's something that we can all relate to. Well, you get headaches all the time. You know what? I get a backache. Backache's worse than it. We start having a competition, like a tug of war now. Whose ailment is worse than the other? And I don't think people realize that they're actually using judgment, and they're not using compassion. They're not opening up their heart.
Well, and using judgment in sort of in the context that you did will create additional stress, which then can fuel certain illnesses. It actually fuels the like I think of cancer, and I apologize for always going to cancer, but I know that stress will heighten or enhance the growth of cancer in a person simply because of what stress does to the body. And so when you think of it, judging people and people getting to know that, oh, here comes Doug again, and he's going to have, he's going to pass judgment on what I'm doing or not doing, and he's going to have all these ideas and all that sort of stuff. If you're not able to manage that and it becomes something that manages you, it's going to have an impact on if you're dealing with, if you've got cancer or some other ailments, and that you're going to end up with the potential is there for enhanced growth of that illness, just because of whether it's stress or whether it's going through people passing judgment, which has a lot of negativity to it just by itself. So it's a matter of not being fully conversant or mindful of, if I behave a certain way, what are the outcomes, not only to myself, but to perhaps other people around me.
Exactly. And Doug, what I'm taking away from what you just said is we're both authors and we know what a tagline is. People will make a statement that inherently could be taken as very nice, very gracious. And then the tagline comes. I'll give you an example. Someone just said this to me. You're in great shape for a 60-year-old. Now, what if they just stopped at you're in great shape? Wow, thank you. I love that. As soon as I hear for a 60-year-old, like, oh.
Yeah.
But they may not realize that when they add the tagline, how it changes the dynamic of what they said. Why do you think people add the tagline? Is it to put us in our place?
Well, part of it is it's stereotyping. They're stereotyping, people based on age. So that tagline, what that basically says is that, you're in the shape that you're in, primarily, your age is a factor in all of that. So it's stereotyping and I just I don't have space for that sort of behavior or that philosophy in my life, because I think that somebody who wants to spend time working out to keep themselves in shape is doing a world of good, not only to themselves but to people around them. Whether it's they're in a circle or whether it's family members or whatever, but is the aspect that, you care about other people sufficient enough that you want to be around for the long haul to be able to be part of their journey as well.
That's so true. We do have a comment from our friend Gaffa. Hello, in Ghana. Nice to have you with us. We appreciate it. Doug, what I'm wondering is, from the generation that I grew up in, my father, may rest in peace, he's always encouraging me. I feel like he was using something like negative motivation. You're so this, but it's a shame you didn't that, for example. Is that inherent to older generations? Because I'm not aware, or today, I don't have any children, but I understand that in many cases, it can be, especially with COVID, that the children and the parents, their relationship is as of friends. And there's not as much of a divide as there was when I was growing up. But I don't know that one thing has to do with another. I could be getting off topic.
No, I don't think you are, because I do firmly believe that a lot of this is generational. So the comments that you were making were definitely coming from that generation, because I think back to growing up as I was prone to being overweight as a youngster, and I can still recall, how I was stereotyped because of that, and was, my father was certainly very good at wanting to put me kind of in my place, so to speak. So, there was that to deal, but it was for the most part, it was generational. And when I think back, there's a whole bunch of different things when I think back to their generation, that it was one of lots of partying, lots of drinking, and all that sort of stuff, and that there's outcomes that come from that, and there's health related outcomes that come from that. But when you think of it nowadays, you don't see as much of that, and I think part of that is, we do have those external influencers where people will periodically judge us based on being a party animal and all that sort of stuff, and not really understanding why we're in that kind of frame of mood. And because I think of, from a partying perspective, I think back to my time in the police force and dealing with traumatic situations, and turning to alcohol to, my favorite statement was to take the cap off the bottle of scotch and drink it till I'd solved all the world's problems, which, as a coping mechanism really wasn't the way to go. But people would judge me based on that, but not understand why I was doing what I was doing, and not understanding the adversity that I was going through and having to deal with. And so, I think that I think back to the people who passed judgment on me from time to time, didn't fully understand the story.
That is so powerful, Doug. Not only did they not understand the story, but were they interested in getting to a place where they could be supportive?
Yeah, I agree. And, did they actually want to understand the story?
Right. Exactly. It's also interesting when people are facing adversity that another person who may be hearing the story, I'll give you an example. Doug, I just found out today that I was cut from my job, from my work. My boss said, hey, and you say to me, hey, it's a good thing that your husband is working. What does that have to do with anything? And in that example, I don't have a husband and I'm not working in corporate, but people will say that all the time. Like, there won't even be a beat where they say, oh, I'm so sorry. How are you feeling about it? Or they may come back and say, well, they have no respect for you. You gave them 20 years of your life. Now you feel like a bigger loser because now you're putting me down too. What is it that causes us to just be so unsympathetic, so not coming from a place of being there as a caring person, but someone who's judging and coming from an ego?
Well, definitely. But I think that we have to take a look at this, from society as a whole. And, when we were talking backstage, one of the comments that I had shared was, human instinct is to actually judge people. So it's so easy. And a large part of that is, when you think of the context of judging people, it's very much a negative place to be in. And what I'm seeing is that we have to work just that much harder at being positive nowadays because of everything that's going on around us, that if we choose not to, then that's when we start to see we start to see where people are starting to pass judgment more frequently, and they are passing judgment without the full understanding of the situation and all of those things. So, I see that that's something that we need to be mindful of and understand that that's just the direction that society is going, and you can either be part of the solution or part of the problem.
I think that's such a great point that you shared. And to take that to another layer is, I've shared before, I don't watch mainstream television, but it'll be on in the house and I'll hear it. And there's a number of pharmaceutical commercials that run over and over again, and life insurance commercials that run over and over again. And when I'm hearing the messaging, I realize that there are laws that certain things have to be disclosed. But I also feel that the way people are being portrayed in these commercials is typically they're a victim, or they're a soon to be victim. And then people who would purchase life insurance at a certain age, whatever the case is, it's almost like you're putting them in this box. So where I'm coming from is, I feel like even the commercials that we have, at least in this country, there's a lot of judgment there. And if you're someone who watches it all the time, you start to believe this. It starts to become part of who you are. So I feel like it's very systemic, I should say. I don't know how it is there in your country.
It's the same, because a lot of the commercials that we get are, the products and services that they're promoting are typically ones that there's some that are not, but that are driven by the pharmaceuticals, which are typically outside of Canada. So we get a kind of a bit of both, and it's actually there. It's interesting. One of the ones that I'm quite interested in and I'm following fairly closely is the one. It's to deal with insurance and all that sort of stuff. So it's an interesting conversation, it's an interesting advertisement to go through, because there's relevance to what's taking place in the world as a whole. And so anyhow, I see so much stuff going on that plays on the aspect of judging people. So here we have, the large corporations that are saying, we have to do this particular way because this is the demographics and the marketing strategy that we need to have in place to be able to deal with, or to promote our products in this particular, demographics of individuals.
Yes, another brilliant comment, Doug. Thank you. And I want to ask you about how judgment could be the result of the way we're being treated. And I'll give an example. We're talking about commercials. What about when we are contacting a call center, for example, and we've contacted them before, and we know we're going to have to wait a long time, and we're going to press 1, press 3, take a survey afterwards. So when we talk about adversity, it could be a number of things. Adversity for me would be, I don't have Wi-Fi access and you're waiting for me to come on to do the show. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I could use my hotspot, I could do this, I could do that, but ultimately I'm going to have to call the cable company to get service. And knowing it could be an hour and a half, I speak to 3 people, reset this, unplug that. So my point is, I already start to feel the judgment. I don't even know the person picking up the phone, and I'm already thinking, I want you to help me, right? we do this unknowingly, right? So I actually now have to calm myself down before I even make a phone call and say, okay, it's going to take an hour, but I've got to get it done. But what about for the people who are not doing self-care, haven't evolved to the point where they're going to be calmed down, and they just take all of that and they throw it onto the next person, judging them for being the brand ambassador? How could you work at this stupid company where the service goes down all the time? That's a judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly is. And it's very, very difficult for us to not want to take our emotions out on the person on the other end of the line. And I used to be there, and I was one of those ones that would go like, really, you know, is that the best that you folks can do? And then I've had some more recently. I've had situations where was actually terminating a service that I had subscribed to for, gosh, since it would be 2009. And I've been with this company. They were providing a service, and I've reached a stage where I no longer need it. And so I was wanting to end the service, and I didn't want to go through any long-winded calls and history or status and all that sort of stuff. I want to end the service. Here's my reasons why. Not that I really need to share why, but here's the reasons why. And let's just do this and get it over with. And by staying calm and approaching the situation in that regard, we were done in 5 minutes. And it was, we hope that you'll come back and, partake in our service another time. And thank you very much, for reaching out to us. And that was the end of it. And boom, service was, I believe she said, we'll terminate effective immediately. But just want you to know we're always here for you if you want to come back. And so, a positive experience, but it could have been one that was negative if I would have, number one, had bias. Number two, would have been already judging the person on the other end of the line, even though I've never had an experience with them before.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought up the word bias, because there's so much going on as humans, right? So many things that we're processing at the same time. And it comes back to expectations. Your expectation might have been that you've enjoyed the service and now you no longer need the service. So please let me cancel the service. And on the other end, they could have handled it very differently. But as a result of handling it that way, you may very well likely recommend someone else for their service. And so I think that that's really a key point. I just had something happen literally yesterday where I needed to cancel service because I'm no longer in that state. I'm not going to be using the service. So I was told I have to fill out a form. Someone's going to call me. I'm going to have a voice conversation, and this could take a week. And I'm thinking, I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about this because now there's other steps that I have to do. Why do I need to do the other steps? Because I probably will come back, but now you're giving me reasons not to. Yeah. So I think that also causes a judgment, because then in the next encounter with someone else, I may think, okay, how many forms do I have to fill out? And that might not be fair to the next person.
But it's human instinct, right? Those are the things, when you think back to both situations, what you shared, what I shared, there was always a common underlying thing there, which was, the whole idea of being able to, to deal with adversity that we're going, obviously facing, and understanding how we're going to deal with that, and then be able to move on. And we're both in a place where we've learned from past experiences, and as a result of that, we're in a place where now we can, deal with things a little bit better.
And also, I would like to tie on to better, maybe with a different set of eyes or from a different perspective.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think, the big thing is the conversations that we've been having and all of that sort of stuff, it boils down to positivity versus negativity, and being able to, to deal with things as best we possibly can with what we have at that particular time point. And, it's simply by asking a question such as, why are you judging this person right now?
Thanks, Doug. It's true. And I want to just quickly talk a little bit about when we judge ourselves when we face adversity. I'm in the process of writing 4 books at the same time. On Sunday, I'm writing 3 pages. I'm writing 2 pages. Anyway, I started this new book about my journey with ulcerative colitis, and I wrote the first 3 pages very quickly, and I really liked it. I had some really good analogies, and I was laughing. And then I went downstairs and I read it to my mother. And when I got to the part about where I got the diagnosis that I had ulcerative colitis, and I wrote these words that I literally hated myself and that I felt unworthy of being loved, like some really harsh sentences that I wrote. And I think I started crying because I felt so bad that I judged myself so harshly for getting the diagnosis with a disease. And then I felt sad because I still feel that way. And I went for a walk and I thought, wow, I have a lot of judgment about myself because I have a disease. And what did I do to get the disease? And people are always saying, maybe you should change what you're eating. And maybe it's this. It's like a lot of people have a lot of things to say about why I have this. But my point being that 33 years I've had this disease and I write it, I'm fine. I read it and I start crying. And I thought, because I've been judging myself all this time and I'm not alone.
No, you're not. You're definitely not alone. And we have to be able to move past the self-judging part. And because when you think about it, how many people, I look at myself, so dealing with grief and the loss of Deborah and all that sort of stuff, I need to have that inner circle of people that I'm comfortable with, that listen, hear, and they're non-judgmental. I need to have that in order to basically to survive in today's world. And you're going through much the same sort of thing where we need to we can't let ourselves bottle up all of that negativity that comes with kind of what you've laid out. We need to be able to deal with it, and we also need to reach out and rely on those who we're comfortable with. We need to rely on them to be able to help us navigate through what we're going through.
Yes, I agree. And thanks for listening. I read it to someone else also, and a friend, and the person said, why are you even writing this? Why would you put yourself out there that way? And I took a deep breath and I said, how does what I wrote make you feel? Well, I don't know what to say. I think it's embarrassing. Is it embarrassing for you, or is it embarrassing for me? Well, I'm embarrassed for you that you would put that out into the public domain.
Writing what you're, and having not read it, I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here, but writing what you're writing is part of the therapy that you need to go through to deal with the illness that you're battling. And the people don't understand that we have different coping mechanisms to be able to deal with things. But for some of us, such as yourself, writing is one of the most important pathways. And writing, and even, I've said it a number of times, but is the fact that even podcast, sharing lived experiences on podcasts, are those two are both one of the more powerful therapeutic steps that we can take as individuals today. And I'm sorry that somebody doesn't understand that, and I'm sorry that you feel the way you do, but we have to take care of, as I always put it, I have to take care of number one. And if number one for me to be able to feel that way is doing podcasts or writing or anything in that sort of that genre, then I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me and not be concerned about what other people are when that are saying that, well, you shouldn't be doing that, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. There are no shoulds in life, and I'm going to bloody well do what I want.
Amen to that, Doug. I love that. I think that also brings up something else, which is even when we don't ask for feedback, people are always giving feedback. Always. I don't know if you get this as an author, but I've gotten this many times. Wow, I see you have a number of books out. How much money are you making? Well, I'm not making very much money. Why would you waste your time? Because I'm not doing it for the money. Why else would you be doing it? Because I blah, 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 blah. Well, I think that's stupid. Thank you. I didn't ask you what you thought. And you don't have to write any books. You don't have to read my books. You don't have to buy my books. Well, I just think that someone like you, what does that even mean? Should be doing something better with their time than writing books. You don't even know what to say that to.
Well, I do, but it's not, we can't say it on air. So I'll just choose not to.
Just write it down and hold it up.
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin, but I remember when I wrote my first book, and, there was, why are you doing this? And you're doing this for money. And I went, same sort of philosophy that you had used, was that I said to people that I'm not doing this for money. And if I'm doing this to get the message out about mentoring, and that was the book was The Gift of Mentoring. And so I gave away so many copies of the book that I never made any money, because that's what I did. I remember I spoke at a conference, and I when I was done speaking, I remember saying to the people in the conference that I brought 12 books with me, and the first 12 of you get a copy of the book. And of course, me thinking nobody's going to come rushing and grab a copy of the book. And actually, to the contrary, I got mobbed. And then I wished that I had more. But, I did it for, number one, wanting to share, the gift of mentoring and what it was all about. And number two, that it gave me the opportunity to interact even one more step further with those 12 people. And even to the extent of having one person come up and say, that was me you were telling the story about. And so and now fast forward to today with the book, You Are Not Alone. Yeah, we're a lot further ahead. It's an international bestseller, yeah, all those great things, but I'm still not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to help promote mentoring and mental health. And that's my sole purpose, my sole reason for doing what I'm doing.
I can totally appreciate that. And I love the fact that you gave those books away, and that's, you did it from your heart. You were giving the message out to touch another life. And what I found in the case that I shared is that person hasn't written any books. Mm-hmm. So how would that person know? When you don't have a shared experience with someone, you're not coming from a place where I feel that you can speak and intelligently. That's judging. I shouldn't say that. You can't understand what it's like if you haven't done it yourself. Yet people are always, I like to say, they're lobbing these little insults out. And sometimes they're, hello, let me get this entire huge boulder and throw it over. And I think in some cases, because we can't say generally, I think that some people really believe that they're being helpful to save you from this path of writing and not making any money. Because at the end of the road, what? I don't know. What is going to happen?
Yeah, I think back to, when we were talking about generational, I had some flashes back to my father and my father-in-law, who were, wanted to be able to pass on their wisdom and knowledge and judgment and all that sort of stuff. And And when you would try to have a conversation to explain why you were doing what you were doing, they completely ignored you, shut you down, and didn't want to continue the conversation in any way, shape, or form. And I see that, they had already passed judgment on, what it was that I was doing, or it could be a combination of a whole bunch of different things, but they'd already passed judgment based on what their philosophies and what their beliefs were as far as what you what you could be doing, where you are in your life at this particular stage. So it comes back to the whole aspect of human instinct is to judge people. And if we don't put ourselves in the other person's shoes, then we're not really being fair in if we're thinking of passing judgment. And the thing is that I always come back to the whole aspect of what can I learn more about this person by listening to their story. And I think if we could all get to that place, we'd be in a lot better place, and there would be none of this stereotyping. There'd be none of this, being judgmental or anything like that.
And I think we could spend hours and hours on this. Maybe we'll discuss it again next time, because I have another topic that's right in alignment with this, which is pretty much everything in life is a negotiation. And I've been in many negotiations, especially in corporate, where people will just judge you by using words. For example, you're obviously an idiot. You obviously didn't do your research. When you have your sense about you, give me a call. You're making a big mistake. These are all judgmental things that happen all the time because we're not getting what we want. And the bottom line is we're not getting what we want because we're not giving value to the other person. The person doesn't see the value in it. So now we insult them to make ourselves feel better because we didn't get what we wanted.
Well, and what we want is we want that person to acknowledge that we are right, and that our opinion is the one that counts the most. So, just kind of follow along and do as I'm doing, or do as I say, and we'll get along just fine.
Whew. Doug, I'm telling you what, we are the 2 hours that we spent together almost, it's a lot of important, deep subjects. I don't know about you, but I feel exhausted and rejuvenated at the same time. I'm not sure which goes which, but it's really important, these things that we're discussing. And I would just hope that one person out there takes something away from what we're sharing, because you and I do the work. We continue to do the work, and we are here in and of service to help other people. Would you like to read from your book for us as we close out today?
I can certainly do that.
And could you hold up your book for those who haven't seen it?
I'll do this first.
Thank you.
And then I'll see what I got here. Mentoring has evolved over the many years that it has been in existence. The term mentor originated with the character of Mentor in Homer's Odyssey, which dates back around 3,000 years. In this epic story, the hero Odysseus entrusts his young son Telemachus to the care of Mentor, his trusted companion. Mentor is able to encourage and support Telemachus in discovering what has happened to his father and help him return to his kingship after many years away. This history of a person who is able to support and encourage a young person to grow and mature is where we get the term mentor today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. Another powerful episode, I feel.
Yeah, it was a real good, because it stimulates the thought process for, I hope, a lot of our listeners and viewers, in that you don't need to be judgmental, that there are different approaches or pathways that you can take that are going to get better outcomes than by passing judgment on somebody else. So I hope that you take that away from today's show, and we look forward to having you with us next week.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Doug, one thing I'd like to just add is, and you said this towards the beginning of the show, many times we don't understand what's going on. And because we feel uncomfortable, it becomes about us instead of about the other person. Someone I know very well, I said to this person, we know someone whose health is declining. Why don't you pick up the phone and call? I don't know what to say. Just pick up the phone and say, hello, I'm here for you. I care about you. And for some reason, we make it about us. Oh, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know what to say. Let's look outward. Let's look across at the other person and say, how are you, Doug? How can I help you? I'm here for you. That's what I'd like to leave people with today.
Yeah, I agree.
Fantastic. How can people purchase your book? How can people hire you? How can people work with you?
So the book is available on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, so you can get your copy of the book there. And how people can reach out to me is, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'm very active on there, so just direct message me and we can kind of go from there. You can also reach me through my website at www.TalentC, so the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca, and go to the contact button and just click on that, and it'll give you a screen to fill in after that. So you can reach me through there. And then finally, and the one that a lot of people are comfortable with, as am I, is just send me an email, and you can reach me at doug.lawrence@TalentC, so the word talent with small c on the end, .ca, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.
Doug, as always, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise and for sharing part of you with us, and just for being a real human being. I really do appreciate that. You show up without pretense. You show up without a script. You show up just as someone who wants to help other people, and you've helped me tremendously. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.